Om Namah Shivaya, everyone. Welcome to Release and Become Conversations. This is World Yoga Month. Yay! Yay! And I am so thrilled and excited and honored to have three amazing people and amazing human beings on this call and on this conversation. Of course, someone calls me right when I'm about to do my intro. So without ado, I am Barbara Bullard. I am founder of Release and Become, and I'm also the author of the book Release and Become. And I'll say shortly that yoga has changed my life. It saved my life. It is my life. I was introduced to the Shivananda Yoga Ranch and all the Shivananda yogis, and they became my family, and I'm their family. And I'm just so excited that World Yoga Month is here, but every day is World Yoga Month. But I'm glad that this month we're able to participate in such fun and exciting activities. And without ado, I'd like to introduce Guruji. And he just sent me his bio, so I'll say it very quickly. And I'm so honored that you're here. Guruji is the global chairman of the World Yoga Community, an NGO associated with the United Nations Department of Global Communications. Guruji is the secretary of the Committee of Religious NGOs at the United Nations. For over 35 years, he is organizing global festivals and conferences. Guruji is an ordained interfaith minister, yogi, monk, spiritual guru, motivational speaker, dancer, singer, musician, sportsman, martial artist, peace ambassador, environmentalist, and the promoter of the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. Guruji is the founder of the International Day of Yoga, global movement, and received numerous titles and awards for his humanitarian activities. Welcome, Guruji.
Welcome.
Would you like to say a few words?
It is great to be with my friends. I'm glad bringing Prem Sadasivananda, one of the old friend from India since 1987, and my new friend Mariam and Barbara. We know a few years. That's great. I'm happy Yoga Day and Yoga Month.
Wonderful. Thank you. We're going to now introduce the rest of our wonderful, and I'm so honored again, guest. We have Premji, which Guruji already spoke about. He is the direct and long-term disciple of Swami Vishnudevananda, the disciple of the renowned Swami Sivananda of Rikesh, India. Premji is also a scholar of Vedantic philosophy. I get so excited when I read your bio. I'm sorry. He's also a Hindu philosopher and a scholar in Hindu scripture and Sanskrit. Premji is the author of the Open Your Heart to Love, a spiritual inspirational book on love, empower your life, and several CDs of chanting. He conducts regular teachings via webinars and live talks and lecture. Welcome, Premji.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me tonight. Very excited to be part of your program, Barbara, and to be with these beautiful people, Guruji, who when there's no introduction needed about him, and Mariam has become our new friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Premji. Mariam, last but definitely not least, Mariam is a chef and a yoga teacher who grew up between the north and south side of Milwaukee with her Mexican-American family until moving to Brooklyn in 2002. Returning home in 2018, she created a wellness space called Botanica Galactica with the spirit of community in mind. Her passions are rooted in creating events that foster connection through food, movement, and joy. Welcome, Mariam.
Thank you so much, Barbara. It's really exciting and just electric to be with all of you this evening. I'm so honored to be a part of this talk.
Thank you. So we're going to start with Premji because I'm so excited. I have to calm myself down. Anyway, Premji, can you please talk about your experiences? Just to give us a snapshot of your experiences under the tutelage of Swami Vishnudevananda. I'm so wanting to hear about that.
Okay. My first contact with Swami Vishnudevananda was a long time ago. I would say maybe 1986 or 5. So just before I met Guruji in in India, and so my training, as you know, like you know, the training in our ashrams usually is when you become a staff, you serve, and you practice yoga and you teach. So none of these, of course, indicate that we're perfect or we're going to reach perfection anytime soon. But it is a wonderful preparation of our hearts and minds for the teachings of yoga to really sprout. So my fondest memories of Swamiji, as we love to call him that way, where he's simply teaching us how to be selfless. And I think this is one of the things we could incorporate in our modern world more and more and more. And just teaching us not to see any differences between any people, any country, any color, any background. And the whole setup of the organization was such that people were actually part of the service from all backgrounds. And I actually really liked that. Sometimes, of course, that wasn't easy. But at the same time, we all had to kind of give up our own preferable ways of eating and living, and then just accept whatever the schedule was giving to us. The one thing I remember about him was that he really taught us how to think of somebody else always, and I think that it in itself is an art. And before you eat, you think, did somebody else eat? You know, when you see somebody, you always think, okay, what is it that this person needs? And this way, we were learning to gradually come out of this, general self-obsession that we all have. You know, we think of ourselves the most. We think, well, we should do what we will get, and what, we always think that we should be the first one to get something. It's completely opposite. Of course, this is in the spirit of India, as we know, but selflessness was one of his greatest characteristics, and he managed to, give this to us as a first lesson. There are many others, so I'm just going to give it to you, the mic back, because I don't know the timing and everything. So um, the selflessness is the number one.
Well, you're being extremely selfless in terms of passing on the mic. And I just I just wanted to say that in reference to Guruji, is when you talk about when Premji was talking about selflessness, I think about you, Guruji, and all the things that you're doing and things that you're thinking about doing. And from what I'm understanding in this conversation right now, that Premji met Guruji many years ago. Am I correct to say that, Guruji?
Yes,
Correct.
So can you talk to us a little bit about selflessness in your day-to-day?
So actually, I learned these things from my mother. Mother was so selfless person. Uh, sh- she is a fire and very soft nature. If somebody is doing wrong, right away she say something to the person. But within seconds, she became a friend. That's the way she was. I got that nature actually. She go to the school. She was a teacher. She go to the school. Within 20 minutes, she reached the school for a mile. But she is coming back from the school, it may take 3 hours. So the reason is when she walking back, every single person from different houses on the way, they want to talk to her. They want to tell their stories. So this is a connection. I have the same problem. So we grew up like this. So I continue my path. That's it.
I love that, and when you're talking to me, talking to all of us, the world right now, I'm also I'm thinking about Miriam, right? When you speak about your mom, and I watch Miriam on social media. I'm not stalking you, Miriam, but I do watch Miriam on social media. Um, and I see how she incorporates her day to day. She's a mom with two beautiful young men growing up in the world, and in a family. And so I just want you to talk a little bit about how yoga incorporates in your day to day, mom.
Mhm. Gosh, I think it's really imbued in everything that I do. And, in the biggest way, I would say it offers presence. And so the biggest lesson that I think I carry around with me on the day to day, and that my two young sons remind me of, is presence, and just being there with them and being in the moment for everything that our family does, everything that they're interested in. I mean, even today I was like sort of swirling around, and my son just asked me to play with him, and is frustrated by my still having to do work. And I've really taken this vow of, if he asks me, I'm going to drop what I'm doing and play with him. If it's like there's not a fire burning, I can do that. And I think it's this constant reminder that's really, I often think, just coming down from the universe through these little ones, and like reaching me directly and just asking me to be present for a minute, and be with them, and spend that time. I think um, it it sort of becomes a meditation in that time, in that moment. And even cooking for them, so it's just really savoring these tiny moments, and being really cognizant of how much abundance surrounds me all the time, and living in constant gratitude for that. So I think that the philosophies and teachings of yoga, it all feels so natural, and it really all ties together in my life, and the way it flows through me, and hopefully onto my sons as well.
I'm a mom, guys, if you didn't know that. And sometimes now you know. But I think, about the selflessness, not just being a mom, but just totally from day to day. I'm in love with karma yoga, okay? I'm in love with it. I find that, when I'm on the farm at Shivananda, or, I'm helping, I just feel the presence of healing, and just peace within myself. Um, and I just wanted to find out from you guys, and anyone could talk. For me, that's my sacred space. That's washing dishes are my sacred space. I do that. That I do that at Shivananda, right? I wash a lot of dishes. So washing dishes is my sacred space. I like it, right? I like to know from each one of you, where's your sacred space? If you choose to share, where do you go for self-care? Anybody can speak. Okay.
I can go. I'm like, yeah, I'm like, it varies. I can find the sacred space that I've been craving now, and I haven't, I find it on in a block party, surround, like dancing under the rain with music, and just like surrounded by people and community. For me, a dance floor is my sacred space, like just that place where I really feel just connected with spirit and connected with others. And like it's the closest thing I can, compared to flying, what flying feels like for me when I'm dancing. Like that just feels like I'm just free, and everything is just coming through me, and you're releasing everything and bringing in all the good. And so that's my personal sacred space.
I'm curious, for everyone that's listening and watching, and the folks that are going to be listening later, we're in COVID, okay, guys, we can't, we can't walk around that one. What any suggestions that you guys may have, and I'll start with Prenji, for just everyday things, just that we can do, just for to release trauma, to find that peace, that moment. Any suggestions?
Yes, first of all, I just wanted to add to this concept of selflessness. I would like to add also that we really means self-forgetfulness. I think most of our energy gets taken up by just thinking about truly ourselves. I mean, we cannot even avoid it for most of the time. But as you all have indicated, when we think of somebody else, and when we do something that kind of seems to make us forget this little self, we feel much better. And that's really where the healing comes from. I think that when we engage continuously with this little worrying mind, that likes to think, oh, what do I do next? What should I do about myself? And the more we think about ourselves, the more stressed we feel inside. And I would just say that probably that's why you feel that the karma yoga is such a wonderful tool to self-healing and finding a little space within. Now, for myself, there are two ways to find that healing space. One is externally with people that I love and just spending some time with them. And usually that's not any more often now, but that's kind of what I like the most. And of course, some kirtan, a healthy kirtan like with Guruji. We used to have wonderful kirtans for most of the time until COVID came. But anyway, that may restart soon. But the singing and devotion, this is just something that works for me. I'm not a dancer. You don't want to see me dance, that's for sure. But definitely singing. Now, to your question about what do we do in these times to, like, where do we find our support for our mental, emotional, and physical well-being? I would just like to say that this COVID, whether you believe in it or not, like people still have their own opinions. It's kind of real in a sense that it shifted our reality and our understanding of things. And if we really ask questions, what is this epidemic situation? What can it teach us? This is where we also start to think what supports us. And we find, for example, that some simplification of life is the first step, I would say, that really actually has a very nurturing quality. And it goes against the mainstream of people wanting to always be busy traveling, and there's always a movement involved in people's lives, which I believe a lot of it is unnecessary, and it contradicts the natural tendency to find some peace also within, and maybe in shorter working hours. This is my dream. That's why I talk about, you know, taking a retirement sooner, in a sense that you find the quality of life of, when you're still young and everything. But for our mental support, I would say we need to rediscover our spirituality in a very deep way. And also we need to discover it not just in an individual way, but also in a communal way. And I think this in itself supports us. And I think the future of the world really lies in connections, in communities, because one cannot cook for oneself, one cannot do the laundry for oneself, you can barely even sing for yourself. So doing things together, that's my answer.
I love that answer. And while you were speaking, I was thinking of Guruji, because I've watched you as a musician. You know, I've been I've been there. I mean, I can even speak right now. Can you just talk about your sacred space, or not, or what you emanate, what are you bringing in and emanating as you play? That's what's going through my mind right now.
For me, I just go with the flow of nature. That's the way it is. I'm sitting alone or with my friends or any events, every moment I enjoy. I know the value of the life, so sacred. From childhood to now, I go through different hard time in my life, but I face it very nicely. Never go like animosity. Keep it. Whatever comes, I take it. A lot of time I tell friends, when we get more troubles in our life, we'll get more humbleness and experience. So I'll just wait for the next trouble. That's the way.
Yeah, it's interesting. Wait for the next trouble. And I think of the word fearlessness, and when I'm practicing my asanas, believe me, I'm releasing a whole bunch of stuff, right? Because I'm so stressed out, forget about it. However, I'm also understanding for myself that it takes a fearlessness to be able to let go, let go of all the things that you just mentioned, Guruji. It's like how, and so I just want to hear from Miriam. You could start first, like, just some suggestions or even just input on how you let go and what does that look like for you? Because people, I'm telling you, I'm talking, and I know you guys are talking to people every day, and they're asked, they want the simple answers, like, like an everyday answer. That's why it's called, yoga and daily life. Miriam?
Yeah. I will, I'll start, of course, coming back to my sons, and even that thought of child's play and what I'm taught, and allowing myself to be led on whatever journey it is that they're trying to lead me on. And that can be so freeing, because as a mom, I can catch myself in moments where I want to try to control things, or I have this idea of exactly how the day is meant to go. But as a parent, that rarely happens. And, so many times I have to throw the whole plan out the window and just roll with it. And, on a great day, it means we're rolling outside in the grass, I don't know, digging up worms, just doing whatever it is that, that they feel inclined to do, or where they want to be led, and sort of letting myself be led by it. And then recognizing that this is just the way and how I'm meant to be letting go in that moment. And I wouldn't call myself a rigid person, but sometimes I find myself just in this space where I'm like, why am I holding on, like clutching to something so, so tightly that doesn't need to be held in that way. So, so through child's play is one way, for me, at least personally.
When I'm on the mat, I love just dropping it, like dropping it on the mat. I don't know about anybody else. Mm-hmm. And when I'm dropping it on the mat, I also, when I'm doing my asanas, I feel like when I'm hearing the instructor saying to me, let feel the energy from the earth, at the same time I'm dropping, and it's, and the earth is supporting me, and it feels for me that I wish that more people understood the idea of that. And so my question is, in reference to you, Guruji, I know that World Yoga Community, that's you, you created it, right? Why did you create it? I know that may sound really like, Barbara, why are you asking him that question? But I want to hear from you, from your mindset of, when was that aha moment that you said, I'm creating this, and why did you create it?
Yeah, because I started the yoga when I was very little, because my mom had a heart problem. And my dad, doctor said, you may live only 3 months. But my dad was a homeo doctor and the alternative medical practitioner. So he took her, and yoga was one of the practice she has to do. So I watch and I do. That's the way I learn it. Then when I was in school, I used to teach my students in sports. I teach them sports exercise, and I'll add yoga. Then people wonder why he's teaching. My mom side is Hindu, my father's side is Christians. And one of the Hindu extremists threatened me, you cannot teach yoga. You are from a Christian family. He just gave me that name. You are from a Christian family, I said, I'll teach. I don't need anybody's support. It was a challenge, Then I just build up. Then I thought we need something for the people everybody can practice because it's very beneficial. That's why I just start the movement. Then it's slowly building up a group. I'm traveling all over India, went to different schools, spending time and end up in Himalayas, and then end up in your city. That's a destiny. That's why earlier I said I go with the flow of the nature. I remember when I was 3 years old, we are living in a rental house, like so many houses there in a cluster. And the son of the owner put a fire in the building, and I end up in the building. Everybody left. And my sister remember after a few hours, oh, our little one is in the building, just, and she ran into the building and took me out. So I was just watching the fires on top of me. For me, that's a precious time for my life. I can be dead that day itself. And when you look at my entire life, it was like this, different situation. But somehow the nature is saving me for a purpose. This is the way I'm going. Whatever happening. Still, I take it. See, look for the next one. So this end up well your community as a non-profit, and we are recognized by the UN. We have friends. I accommodate everybody. I never reject anybody in our group. All the cultures, all the religious people, men, women, doesn't matter. We open. That's the idea.
So when you were talking about, it's for everybody, I was definitely thinking to say to ask Prinji, Prinji, when you're starting your classes, and I think I've been in a few of them, you know, um, just talk about. I know this sounds really simple, but people need to hear this. Why yoga is for everybody, and how do you present that to everybody?
I just wanted to say also, like Guruji, I had a little experience like this when I went to my first yoga class, and I had done many different sports prior to it, and I remember coming out of the yoga class thinking, God, why have I not discovered this earlier? How is this possible? So this experience, it's still with all of us, I believe. Once you've done a really good yoga class with a good yoga teacher, it will transform something in you permanently if you're open to it. If you don't look at yoga only from a physical point of view, although that's the feeling that you first get, and obviously the energy and everything else. I think the yoga, first of all, as a practice, is very neutral in a sense of there are no demands. You don't need to be coming from a different, country, this and that. There's nothing like that. So everybody is welcome because the experience that yoga gives is very unique and also very universal, and it has to do with the transformation, not just of the body consciousness, but also of our minds. And because when that transformation takes place, even in a single yoga class, you feel like you rediscovered a new self of yours. And I think that it gives that universal kind of a quality to the practice of yoga. And in a sense, yoga transforms the vibration of the mind, so it lifts it. So if you come, let's say, you're not feeling well, you're depressed, a little bit lost, and perhaps even irritable by something, or distracted by the two children or three or whatever, then you come to a yoga class, and all of a sudden, after about 10-15 minutes of this magical workout that takes place, you feel like you're a new person. And it is for everybody because that change of vibration is really what yoga does in a very kind of subtle way. It just moves it from a negative to positive, from a positive to, whatever else. Witnessing, we can say many wonderful things about this, but I think that's what we should embrace yoga as something that can go along with any tradition. You can be a Zen person, a Muslim, or whoever, you can practice yoga. And that's the beauty of it. man, woman, in between, anything you want to do, like, if you're in between in your life, between marriages and this and that, you can always do yoga. And it will always bring you back into a balanced state. I find that without yoga, there's really no a foundation for people to keep the peace of mind and to, to deal with all these daily difficulties that we all, face in the daily battle of life.
Mhm. While you were talking, I was thinking about Miriam, and I wanted to hear from her to find out, how did yoga find you?
Oh,
Or did you find yoga?
I found it. I was going through, I don't know, just my early years in New York, like, I don't know, 16 to 17 years ago. And I found myself really struggling to cope with the energy, and I was doing this waitressing job. It was, it felt like I was constantly in this rotation of 2 or 3 jobs at the moment. I was a waitressing job that it was really turn and burn, so it was a lot of people and a lot of energy, and at work, and then leaving work and finding more of it on the streets. And then I went through a really bad breakup. And I think I just had this moment of just feeling like I was just crumbling. And I walked into a studio that was in my neighborhood, and I took a class, and that was it. I had never felt so transformed. And I remember like trying to find different ways to deal with what I was feeling. And I can only like describe it as like this buildup, this buildup of energy, and like needing this release or needing this space and this outlet. And the things and tools that I had that I thought would work, like running, or even the dance classes that I, often come back to, or cooking at the time, baking. I was baking cookies. I was running. I bought an easel at one point. I was like, I'm going to start painting. Like, I don't, and nothing was clicking. And it wasn't until that experience in that class that I remember like just taking a shower afterwards. And I was like, this is it. Like, this is incredible. And that was it. That was it for me.
That's, wow, we all have our own experiences. And one of the questions I wrote down a couple of days ago was, how can we shift our environments, through yoga to support our mental, emotional, and physical well-being? I know that we touched on it a little bit, but is there anything else that you would like to contribute in reference to that? Because our environments sometimes are extremely thick and, challenging. I'll put it that way. So through yoga, Guruji?
Yeah, just yoga, this is like a physical, mental, and spiritual practice. I remember one of the master used to say, begin the day with love, fill the day with love, spend the day with love, end the day with love. That's the way to God. Because God never created any religion, man created religion. The nature created us in a divine form of love. I read Premji's book about the love, that is very hard to implement in our life. But actually, if we don't have an expectation, the love will grow very well, very deeply. That's the only thing I look for. It every time people give us hard time, give love to them. Even though we cannot help them, pray for them. Just leave the place. So I just implement that part in every moment when I go through in my life. I try my best, but overall it is working very well. Even if I have zero balance in my bank, I can live in New York City because that's the way I created a network. Yeah. So I don't feel I'm lonely in New York, even though I'm an immigrant from India. My culture is different, language is different, habits are different. Still, I'm running. People say, how do you handle things in New York? I said, even I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. Premji, I was wondering, are there any points that you can give people on how do they get started with yoga? Because there's people that are watching that are saying, oh yeah, that sounds really cool. How do they get started with yoga?
This is a good question. I mean, now I do not know how many yoga centers are open, but hopefully they will open. And some of, if they're not open, you can start with a Zoom class, although it's not quite the same. I would suggest that people look up for a yoga place or the principles. For example, each yoga place has its own principles, and maybe to look for the principles that kind of resonate with them. Like in Shivananda, we have proper exercise, proper relaxation, proper breathing, proper diet, and positive thinking meditation. It's 5 points that actually is the foundation of a yoga course or yoga philosophy or way of life. So of course, whichever way they can, I would just say start today because I do not believe in tomorrow's beginnings because I find that tomorrow there may be another excuse in the mind. So maybe with 5-10 minutes of some kind of stretching exercises, do it as best as you can. If there is a yoga class available, please make your time to go there. You would not regret it. You will find that you will come back with a completely new energy, new transformation. I think this is important. If I may just add one aspect to the support of our mental and emotional, physical well-being, we need to really protect ourselves from um, over spending time on the internet and medias. Some social media like this one is okay, but I think a lot of us have been impacted quite negatively because there was a true, like monumental, like an avalanche amount of negative news coming from coronavirus and everything. We know that there's a lot of it that's true, but what happens is that the media doesn't give good news. For good news, you have to go to satsanga. So for me, yoga is not just practicing, your postures and breathing, which is essential, but it's also finding a satsanga. The company of people who are spiritually minded and they share some ideas and inspiration like this. I don't know. I think that's probably the best way. I think once you start the class, once you do make a little bit of a change in your life, you start to feel extremely more positive. And we cannot control life, but we can make small steps in a direction of some more harmony. And I think that's quite a lot we can do.
Yeah, one of the things, does anyone else want to say something before I? Okay. One of the things I was thinking of while you were speaking was, I'm always asking the same question, about the culture of peace. One of our previous conversations that we had with Release and Become, we spoke with Ambassador Anwar Chowdhury from the UN that, has been driving the culture of peace globally forever, for many, many, many years. And I want to ask each one of you, what does the culture of peace look like for you? And I'm asking that, and I'll tell you why I'm asking that is because of everything that's happening in the world and what you just said, Premji, in reference to the media and we have to find peace. So what is for you the culture of peace within the yoga tradition?
I would say for me, within the yoga tradition and even Vedanta is really recognition of one common reality in all beings. I think it's time to move in that direction freely. Is to realize that we're really all one. We appear to me in many different bodies, doing different things, but we're really one. As what Guruji said about practicing love, this is just another way of coming around it. I think in that practice, there has to be maybe a couple of things to be said. One is the acceptance. We need to practice acceptance of people that are different from us, as long as they're, of course, not harmful to others. Even then, we can accept them, but we may have to set some boundaries. But I think living in times, as Dalai Lama said very beautifully, we need to cultivate more the heart. with all its qualities, compassion and forgiveness and everything. We need to be able to move away from this kind of a left brain dominated reality that we have, and to really try to live in the heart and from the heart more. So there are a lot of things that we need to do as a humanity to create peace. One is to bring in the values and the ethics into the schools and to the students, and to balance the science with religion, or you can say with spirituality. That's more common now. The other thing is that I believe he brings the greatest peace is to try to live. Peace really in Vedanta is defined as desirelessness. So if we commit ourselves to living a more more kind of a balanced life, I would say, with less desires, it doesn't mean that we cannot enjoy, but we have to learn to do that. I mean, that's what the nature is asking for. That's what the world is asking for. It's really lessening our dependence on other things, believing that these things will bring us peace and happiness. Peace and happiness really are the qualities of the soul that come from within. And I think everybody has to learn that gradually, one way or the other, whether they like it or not.
Guruji, culture of peace?
Culture of peace, I'm fan of Ambassador Chowdhury, close friend to, for me, the main thing is, we just think about this way. We all are chosen divine being on this earth to care and share about every single thing around us. When we have that thought, itself will change our behavior. A lot of time people want to insult other cultural people or religious groups instead of we appreciate the beautiful life we have. They won't appreciate that. A lot of time people just complain every day, every moment they want to complain, but they won't think we have a beautiful life actually. You compare to majority of the people around the world, they don't have enough food or clothing or accommodation. We are still in a good shape. That's the part I always tell people. Thank God, at least we can meet, we can go for a dinner or lunch, have a wonderful time. But I travel all over India. I see how children are going through very hard time.
Mm.
So that made me from childhood never misuse the food, never waste. Yeah. What I need, I just keep in my pot. I just eat. Even clothing, whatever it is. Still, I sleep on the floor, put the yoga mat and sleep. My sleep is like 1 hour, 2 hour every day. That's the way it is.
Mhm.
But I want to be productive. What I can do for the world. That's why I move. But somehow the universe is guiding me. I just go with the flow.
Miriam, speaking of the culture of peace, I was checking you out again on social media, and I saw that you're putting together donations. And what are you doing around activism and yoga right now? Because
Thank you. Yeah, no, that's incredible. I wanted to speak to this because I've found myself in the past year, and even before, for quite some time now, it can be really easy to feel overwhelmed by the suffering of others, and then almost to feel as though it's crippling, and you like wanting to do something but not knowing where to start. And I think community can really swoop into focus. I'm very much a doer. So if there's something that I think is amiss or awry or needs acting upon, I want to be able to do that. And I want to be able to organize people and like, let's figure out our efforts and let's do something about it. And I think the beautiful part about having community, in moments this past year, I felt really sort of beside myself and not quite in that spirit, not quite as grounded, not quite as ready to move into that space. But I was really bolstered by the incredible community that I have around me, and seeing other yoga teachers or people taking action and, you know, just really bringing it down to basics. Like this can just be one class that I'm going to do in the park today. And I'm going to open it up and just take donations and, you know, and donate it to this cause. And it can be as simple as that. I tend to get really complicated sometimes. I do love to cook, you know, I love to dance, and sometimes I want to make everything I do a festival. Whereas it doesn't have to, you know, and that's often a lesson for me, or it's been a lesson, especially over the past year, of, you know, the beauty and simplicity, and the beauty in paring things down, and the beauty in just really not having to do all of that, and the gesture and your intention behind something as simple as a class, you know, even if it's online, you know, you can't make it to the park, you can figure out a way, or what is it that you can do, even if it's as simple as, if you aren't the one stepping away from it as well, and being okay with, if I'm not the one organizing, then I'm going to amplify somebody else's efforts. I'm going to put it out there. Look, this is my friend and she's organizing this, and, you know, everybody, I would like to share with my community that this is happening, and hope that they will support. So,
Miriam, are you taking donations for India? Did I read that?
well, currently I was working with a friend who's a doctor, and she was starting a raffle to raise money for India. And yeah, and so I'm part of that effort with her. So, and she's, you know, been very directly impacted, and so has her family. So that's part of that effort to help her. And then amplifying the voices of other yoga teachers who I see who are offering classes for donations. I think there's been also a lot of dialogue over the last year in, you know, in spaces where people are profiting, you know, from the teachings, and not looking and reflecting that back and saying, well, how can I give, and how can I help, and how can I not see that I benefit, you know, from these teachings and from this philosophy and from this lineage, and then, you know, not find myself compelled to help or give back when, you know, in this way that's desperately needed.
Now that you say that, I have one last question, and then we'll take question and answers from everybody. This is a big one, guys. How do we combat racism and what's happening in the world through yoga? I know that's a big question.
I think a lot of this has been touched upon, and we've spoken, of course, about yoga being for everyone, but at least personally, my experience, especially from leaving Brooklyn and Bed-Stuy and in New York, and then in my community, yoga community specifically there, and then moving back home here to Milwaukee, which is a lot more segregated, and then going into these wellness spaces and not seeing any folks of color. And it felt very, very jarring. And to see that this wasn't, it just didn't feel as welcoming. And I thought, in the space that has existed now, with a lot of yoga spaces unfortunately closing, and a lot of people's practices and businesses having to start from scratch, there needs to be more inclusivity in the teachers you see hired. Because if I'm surrounded by only white women in a yoga studio, like, I'm not going to feel like personally I belong there. You want to see yourself reflected back to you, and you want to feel that you're included there. You want to see all walks of life like surrounding you in that room, because to me that's supreme community. And that's a way that I think that teachers or people in the position of being studio owners or wellness spaces can begin.
Thank you. Premji, any comments?
I want to say I very much agree with Mariam on this subject. I think we need more mixing and mingling, and I believe that all these things that they call isms, racism, sexism, and all this stuff, really have a lot to do with fear, and the fear of something looking or being different from what you are, or it's the basis of this. In fact, this philosophy of insistence of wanting to have only one race and one this was present at the time of Hitler, and it was always, in fact, in the history of humanity, prevalent at some point or the other. Really, I think the modern times are perfect times for these things to die. I believe that we're all entering into a new era of a completely different dimension of consciousness, different feeling, different sensitivity. And what we really need to make sure that it takes where the teaching really takes place is obviously schools, preschool schools, and I think communities like yoga communities and all these things where we really need to bring in more education. We need to implement this education from a very early age so that children mingle with one another, and then there's no like a color difference, language difference, background difference. It's actually when you live in New York City, that's one wonderful thing. For the most of the time that I've been here, it truly doesn't matter where you're from. You add to this big mixed cake, of beautiful people, talents, and whoever they are, from all over the world. I mean, I myself am also a foreigner, like very many people, and people ask you, where is your accent from? Of course, they don't want to ask you where you are from, but it's okay. I say, I have a little bit of a special kind of a fragrance in my accent, and it comes from Eastern Europe or something like that. I think whether it's the geographical, like dimension that we're talking about here, or color, or any. I mean, is it really not the time to see the inside of the people rather than focusing on the outside? And if you think of Bob Marley and a beautiful song when it says, the color of your eyes, does it really make you any, different from others? So anyway, the same answer Guruji always has is the one the same. It's really love in action, where we must not just we ourselves already I believe don't have many of our prejudices like that, but we also have to step in if other people have prejudices, and we need to protect them. Those who have been victimized by such situations, and I think that people are really overfed by media here, and even though racism is live and everything, but we don't see where the racism really does not exist, where people really like embracing one another. But a lot more work is needed, I have to say that. And for me, I believe in education. Education meaning every day, satsang, you teach. Because if you don't have a spiritual foundation, or at least ethical foundation, which is really an offshoot of spirituality, then we would not have a proper understanding of this idea that we are same people.
Wow. Guruji, any final remarks before we take questions, if we have any?
Yeah, when you look at this racism, I'll say I face from my birth to until now. Wherever I go, I see this problem. When my parents married, because they are from different religion, they had really hard time, and both kicked out from the family, and some of the relatives gave hard time. The neighbors gave hard time. Then mom is really dark, my father is light. I became like a brownie. So I am in between. So wherever we go, if I go to a temple, they say, "Don't come here. We're from a Christian family." If I go to the church, "Don't come here. We are from a Hindu family." These problems bother me, so I said, what I will do? I will do a integrative or international movements. That is happening now. You look at my last 50 years, over 50 years, my work life. You need to show in every events, I bring people from different faith and the culture and the different background. You hear how people are talking about me from today's morning meeting. They are not from India. They are from different countries. They feel like I'm part of their family. So I create that niche for everybody. You have a place you can enjoy. I'll say every second is very precious for us. So somehow when I interact with the UN, it will build up more and more. I used to be in a pre-military. So we go for a national camp. We won't speak language. Each state has different language, but we just smile. You know, we don't know how to speak the other language. So we gather every day evening. We have bonfire. Put the fire and we dance, sing. If we don't know their language, we learn it. This is where I grew up. So now it became like international style. So I was proposing to my friends, we may create international integrative camps. So children can go to different countries and interact and learn new things. That will make a big change. Like when you go to the UN, you see people from different colors, they have different attire, so beautiful. So we should keep like that. And a lot of time people don't know the reality of the life. That's Premji mentioned about the education, the lack of education, and they don't know the background. So we should create a situation for everybody can learn things about the world. The internet is helping us even Zoom. I never learned about Zoom or anything. One day, Premji was saying, "What do you think about the Zoom? I am doing the class." Actually, his person gave me a motivation. Now I became an expert in that within 1 year.
That's, when you were talking, I was like, my gosh, yes, education, that's what's up. And I was on the call earlier with you, Guruji, and everyone was from all over the world, and they love you so much. I mean, I just want to thank you directly from my heart. I was feeling it. And if you guys didn't participate, it's online. Check it out. They have a moment that everybody just starts laughing. That's a language that everyone can speak. I had so much fun, especially the moment when they said, imagine you're tearing up your bills and you're laughing. That was the best part for me. I was like, imagine all my bills being torn up and I was laughing. That was so great. But, I think that, World Yoga Community, World Yoga Month, 28 years, still strong, being here to support all of us. We're a global community. And I just want to thank you, Guruji, for bringing that to us, to this planet. Of course, we have much more to do. I hope to hear from all three of you off this call. Just putting a little hint there. But I just want to say, wow, this was a great conversation. Premji, Miriam, Guruji, and for everyone that's on this Zoom and those that's going to listen to the recording after, I just send you many blessings. And if Guruji, you want to close us out, I truly appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm glad we had this wonderful interview and dialogue, because the dialogue itself is a big movement. I remember once I met Mother Teresa. She came to one of the alternative medical program. Then I asked a question to her. Do you have any teaching for me to remember from you? So she said, keep your smile. You have a good smile. That smile can change the world. I believe, even though we go through hard time in our life, we have to smile. Never hate anybody around us, because the energy through the yoga that is connecting from us to the universe, that reflex has to be come through your face and eyes. That's the spirit of the human being as a divine nature. I hope we all will make a big change in this world from little movement what we do in our life. The world needs us. We are the world.
Thank you so much. Have a great week and follow all the World Yoga Community events. Is the whole entire month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you so much.
you.